Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rekt Capital and thank you so much for joining me in today's video where we'll be diving into a thought-provoking topic, the possibility of a 2015 style crash for Bitcoin. We'll be taking a very careful look at historical events and discuss what might be lying ahead for Bitcoin. It's an interesting exploration, so let's dive right in. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future, and let's have a look at the 2015 crash here, because in 2015, as we can see across time really, we have these three macro triangles, and 2015 was a very interesting point in time because upon breaking this macro downtrend of multiple months, we saw a breakout move towards the upside followed by a retest, so a strong retrace into a flip of old resistance into new support. And we actually saw this in a very volatile fashion, downside wicking into that macro downtrend, turning it essentially into a springboard before enabling the uptrend going into the halving, which the halving being marked by vertical blue lines here. In 2019, it was a slightly different situation where we really convincingly broke beyond this macro downtrend and then local topped here and then pre-halving retrace just before the halving event. So a downtrending portion of price action here, 3 months of upside followed by multiple months of downside, culminating in a downside wick to bottom before the pre-halving event. And the reason I mentioned that is that this downside wick, it revisited very closely to the bear market lows. It was a higher low, but nonetheless, it did revisit those price levels. And the reason that I'm mentioning this pre-halving retrace is that we never really got a retest of that macro downtrend until very close to the halving. And this isn't a retest of the macro downtrend, but if we were to conceptualize this macro downtrend as this price point, then it very well did in some way revisit the retesting levels of 2019 and that macro downtrend. Right over here, we got a breakout, macro downtrend retest, and then price never looked back. And what I want to talk about in this video is, can we see a 2015 style crash? Because we've broken the downtrend, so the macro downtrend is over, a new macro uptrend has emerged, and now it's just about talking whether we can see a macro downtrend retest, because upon breaking the macro downtrend, which was priced at 24,600, it's important to note that as time goes on, this downtrend goes towards the downside. So the downtrend continues to downtrend and represent lower and lower prices over time. So in the months that have since passed, since breaking this macro downtrend, we've seen the macro downtrend represent a price point of 24,600 to 18,400, 18,500 this month. So essentially, for price to macro retest this macro downtrend, Bitcoin would need to this month break down and retrace into 18,500 from approximately 30K right now. So that's quite a significant drop for it to do in 2 weeks' time, really, because it's mid-August right now. So it's very likely that we won't see a retest of the macro downtrend this month, because a crash, such a crash in just 2 weeks to revisit 18,500 is a bit of a stretch. But then, as we'll see over time, from August, we see that the price point is 18,500. And in September, we see a decline of almost $1,000 in the price that the macro downtrend represents. And in September, that price point is going to be 17,600. So we're seeing how that's a dramatic change in the price point from August this month to September, almost a change of $1,000, because the macro downtrend continues to trend down towards the downside, really. And a retest, essentially with time, is getting a little bit less likely, because it's getting really a dramatic retrace would need to take place. And in October, that price point would be 16,600. So once again, this time a $1,000 decline. But it just shows how for Bitcoin to retrace from current levels and to try and retest this macro downtrend, this sort of retracement would take time. But at the same time, as time passes, this downtrend is trending downwards. And in November, the price point would be 15,800. In December, 14,800. In the new year of January, around 14K. February, 13,200. So it just shows how with each passing month, it's going to be a stretch for Bitcoin to drop into that retest region of the macro downtrend. However, it's really important to note that just like in 2019, for instance, we never got a retest of the macro downtrend, but we did retest the breakout levels of the macro downtrend. And that's quite interesting because the breakout level for the macro downtrend in this cycle is 24,600. So dropping into this level, I think is quite possible in the coming months going into the new year. In fact, I feel like going much lower into even the sub 20K region is quite likely in the several months ahead going into 2024, the early part of it. However, it wouldn't be in the form of this macro retest as we saw in 2015. We're not going to see a macro retest of this macro downtrend. It just seems too unlikely, and the retrace would need to be too dramatic and would need to occur within a short space of time to go for this macro downtrend retest. Instead, what I'm proposing is that we'll see a breakout as we've seen, and we might local top at some point and then drop closer to the halving, maybe a few months before the halving, and we'll just drop into those lower prices. So essentially, this is what it would look like, where Bitcoin local tops at some point, perhaps it overextends a little bit towards the upside, and then enjoys a bit more downside going into the halving, which could see Bitcoin drop into the 20K, low 20K, even sub 20K regions very briefly before moving towards the upside, going into new all-time highs post-halving in the several months after the halving event. So 2015, does 2023 resemble 2015? Well, it looks like it's resembling more 2019, and I actually created a video about this, so feel free to check out the channel for that video, clearly titled, Is Bitcoin Behaving Like 2019 in this cycle? And we're seeing that there are a lot more similarities with the 2019 period compared to the 2015 period, where in 2015 we broke the macro downtrend, retested it, and then moved towards the upside. However, we also need to talk about the pre-halving price action. Pre-halving price action tends to be a bit boring. It tends to move sideways. In 2015, we saw a consolidation period, a breakout towards the upside. Around the halving, some retracement. Here, also in the months going into the halving, retracement, pre-halving, retrace, and then moving towards the upside. Going into this halving event, some sort of consolidation or retracement, and of course a pre-halving retrace is likely. It will probably be a combination of 2015 or 2019. Those are at least the data points that we can go on going into this halving. But there is scope for a revisit into 20K, maybe even sub 20K later this year or even earlier in 2024, whether that's going to be more of a pre-halving retrace or just a normal correction from the local top like we saw in 2019. So in sum, 2023 is looking more similar to 2019. We won't get a retrace and retest of the macro downtrend like we saw in 2015. Instead, the retrace that will be the most significant of them all in this cycle will probably be around the halving, before the halving, several months before it, and it will take the guise of a stronger correction in the form of a pre-halving retrace that we saw in 2019, and that retrace will occur after a local top, also like we saw in 2019. And so that's going to be more of a roadmap that's more likely than a retrace and retest of the 2015 macro downtrend that we saw back in the day. In any case, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. Click on that like button, as that will really help with the algorithm and promoting, growing this YouTube channel. In any case, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.